Rumsfeld calls it nonsense. Who should we believe?
Later, an international manhunt is underway for reality TV star who stands accused in the gruesome murder of his ex-wife.
Ryan Jenkins is an animal. What he has done to Jasmine is unspeakable.
Looking for answers in the death of a swimsuit model.
New video of President Obama getting revved up at the White House, and why you should never ride piggyback with a mascot. All that and more this hour on MSNBC.
Good afternoon. I'm Alex Witt, live here in New York. Tamron has the day off. Hi, David.
Hey, Alex, good to have you on board. I'm David Schuster, live in Washington.
And we are beginning with a market alert, everyone, as the closing bell rings on Wall Street about a minute and change ago. U.S. stocks surging higher today on some positive economic news, up about 150 points or so on the Dow today, which is very good news. Things were up on the NASDAQ as well as the S&P, so it's a good way to end the week all the way around. And the chairman of the Federal Reserve says the U.S. economy is indeed on the road to recovery. Ben Bernanke told attendees at the annual Fed conference in Jackson Hole, Wyoming today that economic activity in both the U.S. and around the world appears to be leveling out, and prospects for a return to growth in the near term appear good. It also looks like the U.S. housing market is rebounding a bit faster than expected. Sales of previously owned homes rose 7.2% in July, and it was the fourth straight month of increases and the highest level of sales since August of 2007.
And Alex, now the big picture at this hour. Former members of the Bush administration are out in force today attempting to describe Ridge, the first Security Department. Ridge has a new book coming out claiming he was pressured to raise the terror threat level on the eve of the 2004 presidential election. You'll recall that just 4 days before President Bush was reelected, Osama bin Laden released a videotaped message in an attempt to impact the vote. According to Ridge, here's what happened next. Inside the Bush administration, a vigorous, some might say dramatic discussion ensued. Ashcroft, the Attorney General, strongly urged an increase in the threat level and was supported by Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense. There was absolutely no support for that position within our department. None. I wondered, is this about security or politics? Former Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld calls the Ridge claims nonsense, and former Chief of Staff Andy Card told Politico, quote, "We bent over backwards repeatedly and with great discipline to make sure politics did not influence any national and homeland security decisions. The clear instructions were to make sure politics never influenced anything." Ridge said the 2004 incident led him to ultimately resign before ever investigating his hunch that the American people were scared into voting for President Bush.
Now, David, in the bigger picture, Bush administration officials are livid about Tom Ridge's claim that he was pressured to manipulate the threat of a terror attack. In fact, listen to what Ridge said in August of 2004 when he was asked directly about it.
I wish I could give them all the top secret clearances and let them review the information that some of us have the responsibility to review. We don't do politics in the Department of Homeland Security.
We don't do politics in the Department of Homeland Security. So what about reaction from the supporters of Senator John Kerry, who indeed lost that election to Bush because many voters didn't think he'd be as tough on terror? Democratic strategist Michael Meehan was the spokesman for Senator John Kerry's 2004 presidential campaign. We welcome you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to put up this terror threat level chart. We're going to remind Americans all about it. They became so familiar with it in the years immediately after 9/11. As you look to things, everybody, this is the terror threat. Those are the color charts. You have the low, guarded, elevated, high, severe, color-coded there. Now we look to the one we were just seeing. That's the chronology of the threat level, the 2004 presidential election year. Look at this. January of that year, the threat level was lowered from orange to yellow until just 3 days after the Democratic National Convention. Then look at the end of October. Osama bin Laden releases a videotape message just 4 days before the election. And it's during the next day or so that Ridge claims at that point he felt pressured to raise the threat level. Ultimately, the threat level remained orange. So then November 2nd, President Bush is reelected. 8 days later, the threat level is lowered back down to yellow. You see where we're going here. Tell me what you think about all this, Michael. Is there a legitimate point to be made that maybe there's something political here? Can you see how that would be read into it?
Oh, absolutely. If Secretary Ridge says he was so concerned about the political pressure that he quit after the election, why wasn't he so concerned about it before the election? Back 5 years ago at the Democratic convention, John Kerry had laid out a very strong case by why he would be tough on fighting terrorism. The scathing 9/11 Commission report had just come out 2 weeks before that had the Bush administration on the heels. And 3 days after our post-convention bounce, you have Secretary Ridge raise the levels in Washington and in New York on the financial sector, so there was part of the country where the threat level was raised. Then you have, on the eve of the election, another move by the Homeland Security Department to move this up. So it raises questions because Tom Ridge is a serious guy, serious enough to quit. It's just amazing that we have to wait 5 years to find out the truth. I mean, these are the same people who this summer say don't trust the government because to fix health care, but now we got someone who used to run the government saying you shouldn't trust the government. I mean, which is it?
Michael, I wonder if you can quantify the polling suggested that the voters tended to trust, for whatever reason, the Bush administration more on dealing with terror than John Kerry. But I wonder if you can quantify how many votes it cost you when that was put front and center in front of the voters, for example, with the bin Laden videotape 4 days before Election Day.
Yeah, in all presidential elections, the people who are undecided wait to the last 7 to 10 days to make a decision. And so in the middle of this, we knew we were taking on an incumbent president in the middle of a war, and we had made a case for why John Kerry could be the commander-in-chief. But when you have manufactured information coming from the government to raise people's fear and anxiety, it's unpatriotic. It's just, we knew that the Bush White House would do anything possible to get reelected. It's just shocking 5 years later that one of their own cabinet secretaries comes forward and says this.
So I'm curious, Michael, why now? Because we look at what happened back then. Ridge made this very different claim in the book that's called Bush's Law. In fact, here's what Peter Baker writes about in the New York Times. The quote goes, asked by Eric Lichtblau of the New York Times if politics ever influenced decisions on threat warnings, he volunteered to even take a lie detector test. Wire me up, Mr. Ridge said. Not a chance. Politics played no part. So that was then. This is now. What happened in the interim?
Well, I think you've seen a bunch of Republicans now trying to distance themselves. Vice President Cheney just came out and said, well, the president really didn't talk to me much in the second term. You got the secretary now trying to say, well, he had some concerns and that's why he resigned. And now, after years of telling us we should get duct tape and plastic, now that we should go buy his book to find out what the real truth is. I mean, it was just amazing at the time what the Bush White House was willing to do to get reelected. And manipulating terrorism information has got to be one of the bigger offenses.
Okay. Michael Meehan, Democratic strategist, thank you very much for that.
Thanks.
So, David, how explosive do you think